Welcome back, my friends, to another crazy week of space awesomeness. Loads of great new information on SpaceX's Flight Test 4 and surprising updates for Flight 5 Starship. Outside of that though, it has been a gigantic week of action packed with terrific scenes and new surprises. With both vehicles launched and now presumably sitting at the bottom of two separate oceans. How is the launch site itself looking? Overall, it doesn't look too bad at all. One of the most interesting sights captured by RGV aerial photography was that the water-cooled stainless steel deflector plate had taken on a very shiny gold color that had some out there worrying that there may have been some severe damage to it. Stainless steel can actually change colors depending on the temperature that it was exposed to. By the looks of this, there really isn't any problem to worry about. Also, if you look very carefully, you can see this on the forward flap of Ship 29 in flight. There was, however, some bigger damage at the flame diverters right at the base of the six legs. Those do look like they took a beating. Thankfully, this can be fairly easily resolved by either replacing them or adding extra shielding on top. For now, as has almost become tradition at this point, at least 10 of the hold-down clamps have been replaced already ahead of the next flight. Over at the launch tower, everything seems to be in fairly good condition. A few small chunks of damage here and there though. The cladding at the top of the launch tower has a few holes now punched through, and the ship quick disconnect was sitting at a bit of a weird angle yet again. We saw that happen during previous flights too. And as we have more flights, they're adding more protection where it matters. Nothing here that is going to delay Flight 5. Now if you missed it, Elon came out afterward quite quickly to suggest that SpaceX would attempt to catch the booster with the tower in Flight 5. Now skeptical as some may be, if they actually go for that, it would be a wild thing to see. Actually, this week already, the teams have started to perform deployment tests on the catching rails on the tower arms. We haven't seen those in action just yet, but these are what the booster will land on, acting as a sort of soft cushion to lessen the impact of a booster touching down. Close by, the tank farm also took minimal damage. The old vertical liquid oxygen tanks, however, are super dented and pushed in this time around. These are being completely removed anyway, as we've talked about a number of times, so this doesn't matter. Although it does really show how much that perite insulation was keeping them intact all this time. As far as we know, that insulation had been at least partially sucked out here prior to Flight 4, but the vacuum trucks were back at it again this week to finish the job. Close by, the 3 insulated water storage tanks didn't escape fully unscathed. Some of their external insulation covers had been blown off. Now interestingly, in the Flight 4 livestream, Dan who mentioned that SpaceX are going to use this same tank farm for the second orbital pad. We weren't sure if we would soon be seeing a second tank farm beginning construction, so this is going to greatly speed up the process of getting everything up and running. We have big strides going on here too. The huge pile cap for the integration tower has already been poured, which had around 180 concrete trucks just rolling through. In fact, during the RGV flyover, we spotted new embeds installed in the rebar in this intriguing pattern. Added to that, we have seen delivery of multiple tower base parts made out of stainless steel. And we can already see that SpaceX is focusing on minimizing refurbishment between flights. But how exactly will it all go together? Thanks to Benedict 3D, we can get a great idea on how all of this is assembled. It all starts with the construction of the pile cap with the embeds added in there. And this is going to act as an interface between the steel tower base and the concrete pile cap. That will be followed by the 4 corner pieces and walls between them. Above those will sit the 4 small pieces that previously formed the interface between the concrete base and the tower segments that we saw at Launch Complex 39A. With blistering speed, the corner legs for the tower base began to be lifted and installed. 2 of them were in place in no time. To make the lift of these easier, they first installed the tower segments interfacing pieces onto the base corners since they have lifting eyes. This tower is going to rise quickly. Of course, to stack the second tower segments, you'd need a crane. Won't need to wait much longer for that because parts of a gigantic Demag CC8800D1 crawler crane are actively being delivered right now. This has a maximum lift capability of a staggering 1,600 tons. Quite a bit higher than the 1,350-ton capability of the crane that SpaceX used to stack the first tower. Of course, the full set of tower segments are not yet here at Starbase, are they? Well, the last 2 are well on the way. We saw them being loaded up in Florida a week ago, but now those segments, together with the tower arms and their carriage, set sail as shown in these breathtaking views from Jerry Pike as they left the Cape. They should arrive around June 23rd, just a little over a week away. So, heading over to the Sanchez area of the build site, we can still see the other 7 tower segments patiently awaiting their time to be stacked. Recently, SpaceX snuck in something else too. This cryogenic storage tank has been moved in with them. The foundations for the expanding liquid oxygen storage area of the launch site aren't yet finished. As soon as that is ready, this tank, I suspect, will be moved over and fully integrated into the tank farm. So with Flight 4 now gone, let's dive into the construction for future vehicles. Booster 15's liquid oxygen tank is steadily growing. As mentioned last week, the views inside the mega bay during stacking are becoming a thing of the past, but we do still have a great view of the next barrel sections rolling out to be staged in front of the mega bay. First off, this after barrel, which at first looked just like the previous sections, but then we spotted this. It looks like they have installed a vent right in the middle of the liquid oxygen tank. Now, thanks to all the awesome help from Chameleon Circuit, we can see this location is right above one of the two carbon dioxide tanks. The exact purpose isn't known, but perhaps this might be involved in a secondary autogenous pressurization manifold, one that is not directly placed around the very cold common dome with a liquid methane right above. That section was moved into the mega bay, and a few days later, the next one in line, after barrel number 4, appeared as well. This one does look very much like those seen on previous boosters. After that was moved inside, after barrel number 5 was soon staged in front. The next one after this will be the far more exciting thrust section, several of which were spotted in the Star Factory shots shared during the Flight 4 livestream. Next door, Ship 30, the ship for Flight 5, is undergoing some big changes. First, it was lifted several times and in the process, Raptor vacuum number 378 was removed, soon to be replaced with number 390, which moved in for installation. Why they switched this out isn't clear, but perhaps after Flight 4, some of the data from Ship 30 static fire showed something amiss. Based on that, we may see Ship 30 rolling out to the Massey's test site and witnessing some more fire bursting into the flame trench. You may be wondering why Ship 30 wasn't moved into Mega Bay 2 to have that Raptor swapped out. With the Star Factory now almost fully completed, the construction has actually moved on to the former ring yard. The grading here hasn't always been the best, and given that the Star Factory doors exit higher than the surrounding area, they're likely redoing the grading here, starting at the area right in front of that second mega bay. Anyway, after that Raptor swap, Ship 30 started to undergo quite a drastic makeover. Early in the week, Elon shared that the entire heat shield of the vehicle is going to be replaced completely. They now want to put a silicon felt ablative backup behind the tiles. That's why if any of the tiles are cracked or come loose, there's a secondary protection underneath. Also, the new ceramic tiles should be about twice as strong as those on Flight 4. The team started with the tile removal right at the tip of the nose cone and the liquid oxygen tank. Just 24 hours later, we could already see tiles missing, starting at the aft skirt all the way up to the payload bay. Most of the heat shield was gone, including ripping right into the tiles on the flap areas. Even still, the installation of the new heat shield is going to take a while. I suspect perhaps they are going to simply replace the entire white KO wool blanket material underneath with the ablative stuff. Over at Massey's, with a static fire of Ship 26 completed the previous week, it was moved away from the flame trench and soon enough hooked up to the crane. It was then lifted over onto a normal transport stand. The following day, it rolled back to the build site and was placed in the rocket garden. Okay, so we are now just over a week since the awesome 4th flight, and there is some amazing new stuff that has come to light since then. Before diving into that though, a big shout out to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. Let's chat about something important. Your online data. These days, there's an entire industry dedicated to gathering and selling your personal information. Data brokers are companies that make money by collecting your data, analyzing it, and then selling it to other businesses, all without your permission. That is why protecting your personal information has never been more crucial. The more it's spread around, the bigger the risk to your privacy and security. It's not just annoying and intrusive personalized ads that we're talking about, but potential scams, frauds, and even identity theft. That's where Delete Me comes in. Over the past few months, they've been scanning a library of data brokers for my information. After the initial scan and removal requests in the first month, they've kept finding and deleting more data as it has appeared. Although I could probably try to do this myself, I wouldn't know where to start and how to keep up with it all. Not only that, I really don't want to. Since I started using the service, I've certainly had a lot less spam calls and emails though. Recently, Delete Me launched a new feature that lets you include your entire family under one account. Now your loved ones can have the same robust privacy protection that you do. The account owner can also easily adjust the privacy settings for each family member through a user-friendly interface, and each profile can even be made private. With their own login if needed, give it a try using my link joindeleteme.com markers for a 20% discount on US consumer plans. You can also find the URL in the description for international plans too. Privacy is a choice for you and your entire family. Thank you, delete me. Okay, so just check this out. During the initial ascent in Flight 4, we knew that there was an engine out, but midweek SpaceX shared some close-up views of that booster. As we know, there was an engine out right after liftoff, but notice here that it looks like a Raptor almost opposite looked to be throttled down, perhaps even as low as it could go. That, I assume, was automatically done with the software to compensate for the uneven thrust. We also had a different engine out on the landing burn, but it didn't seem to affect the accuracy of the soft splashdown too much. Just check out this awesome footage showing the booster screaming into the thick atmosphere. A gigantic shock cone there before it fires up to perform that soft splashdown in the ocean. The landing target was so accurate that the pre-placed camera in the ocean had a perfect view of it coming in. You could see that gigantic flame coming out the back, which we assume was due to that one missing engine that had somehow gone missing. How accurate was the ship landing though? Well, Ellie had the scoop on that with Elon mentioning that it had softly splashed down around 6 kilometers geographically from the target location, but also added that the 3 sea-level engines had fired up for that flip landing burn. Given that we hadn't seen the engine diagram light up at the time, we were unsure about that in the live stream. That accuracy is pretty impressive, seeing as the forward right flap was burning through. Also, this was of course the first time that they have ever had a full entry to record the data from. In fact, the mission went so well that the FAA has already stated they won't need a mishap investigation at all. That should mean that Flight 5 can really be taking off as soon as SpaceX is ready. Now, I was super curious how the other 3 flaps held up, given the live stream only had views on this forward flap right here as it was melting away. Well, Elon replied to me here saying that the front left flap also got very hot but was less damaged than the right. He added that the rear flaps seemed to be okay based on their control authority. However, they probably did also lose some tiles. With a completely new heat shield, this should help for Flight 5, but in the future, these forward flaps will be shifted more leeward. And thanks, by the way, to Space Rocket Lab for shooting this great 3D printed model over. Appreciate that, quite a nice middle-sized rocket to demo this sort of thing. Link in the description if you want to check out what they're doing there. I still can't quite get over that Flight 4 spectacle. The incredible Tony Bella, by the way, has his final infographics out right now if you want to check out the intricate detail in that. Also, thanks to the assistance of Lunar Caveman, I believe that's a great desktop background or something that you can even get physically printed. Huge work goes into all those, and he does this for the community totally free right there. Thank you, Tony. If you love what he is doing there, do consider subscribing to him. I'm so grateful to be part of a community that is so supportive of what we all do, and thank you, of course, for being subscribed right here. Now we have some pretty major news over at Launch Complex 39A in Florida. This week, the FAA released a fact sheet for all of the ongoing environmental impact assessment for Starship launches. Taking a look at the proposed site, we can see down here that a tower seems to be dedicated to just vehicle catches, which has been suggested near this landing pad area. Now, that may be a preliminary step towards an eventual launch tower as things evolve, but we just don't know at this stage. While the FAA states that for now, this tower will only be used for booster catches, I suspect that eventually they will be allowed to catch ships here too. Some other landing options have been included in this document too, with both the booster and the ship proposed to also be able to land on drone ships. There is, of course, debate if this means actually touching down on the platform itself or if they will build some sort of tower on the drone ship to catch it with. Both vehicles also have an option to be expanded into the ocean entirely when needed. So yeah, this is a very useful update. SpaceX have also proposed more storage tanks, an on-site air separation unit which would separate the oxygen and nitrogen from the air to be stored, as well as an on-site facility for methane generation. Okay, so a sweet update in the Artemis campaign was achieved as Peggy Whitson from Axiom Space and NASA's astronaut Douglas Wheelock hopped into Axiom's next-generation extravehicular mobility unit or EMU spacesuit for an integrated pressurized environment test. This is one of the first such tests of its kind since the Apollo era, and for me, this is such an exciting milestone to see. We are really witnessing history here as we tick off the steps to having boots finally back on the moon after all of this time. This test was done with NASA, SpaceX, and Axiom Space using development hardware for SpaceX's Starship at Hawthorne, California. It is, after all, essential that the compatibility of the spacesuit and the lander design is all tested out for the Artemis 3 mission. All of this feedback and testing is information that is obviously critical for the iterative upgrades to the system. I think this is pretty darn impressive. Axiom Space has made gigantic steps forward with this already in less than 2 years. moving well beyond the preliminary design phase. Recent trials included a successful simulation at NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Lab, and it was using a weighted unoccupied suit to replicate the moon's low gravity. These efforts are ensuring that the suit is ready for extensive scientific research during the first mission to the lunar South Pole. In the 3-hour test, the astronauts operated inside SpaceX's Starship human landing system design, assessing the spacesuit's flexibility, agility, and also the design of the spacecraft's interior. They tested out portable life support systems and other suit features as well. All of these tests were done tethered to the external support system integrated with the HLS. Loads of Starlink action again this week. The network is growing at an astonishing rate with the service now available in 100 countries. Soon after my last video went live, we had the Group 10-1 mission. Indeed, this was the first to launch into the 10th group, and it was heading into the evening sky from Slick 40, a stack of 22 satellites there, and none of them with a black coating this time. This was the 16th flight here for Booster 1069, heading back to land on the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. Now this was actually the 300th Falcon 9 landing. There was some confusion on this. As you may recall, we saw a similar 300 landing record at the end of April. That one, though, was the 300th Falcon booster landing, which also included the Falcon Heavy side booster recoveries. Either way, it is a great milestone. Less than 12 hours later, here sat Group 88 right at sunrise. Well, assuming that you can see a glimpse of it in there behind the fog, this was obviously flying from Vandenberg Space Force Base. At fairing deploy, we could see that this one had a very clear mixture of the regular satellites mixed with about 13 of the direct 2-cell satellites on top of the stack. Moments later, here was Booster 1061 touching down for the 21st time on the drone ship. Of course I still love you, and that makes it the equal record holder with Booster 1062. It was action again for Virgin Galactic's VSS Unity, but also for the last time. They released this great recap of the mission just the other day, having flown almost a week ago on Saturday the 8th. The narrative all around looking up and getting that unique overview effect and helping to change perspectives. There was a real poetic nature to this flight, and also there were experiments on board to help us understand some of the basic human physiology in microgravity, which always needs further research. From the moment the passengers arrived, you could tell that they were making a big deal out of this final flight. It was actually an international research mission, combined with the private experience for the crew. Well, as private as it can be, being plastered all over social media. The crowd at the facility was apparently the largest since the Unity 22 mission, which had Sir Richard Branson on board. This mission, though, was named Galactic 7, and the crew were absolutely ecstatic to be on this final flight of the suborbital rocket-powered spaceplane. Before we knew it, they were at the target drop altitude with Unity being released at 11:26 a.m. Look, I know these suborbital missions get a bit of flack, but I would absolutely love to experience this myself. Currently, this is super expensive still, but as the technology advances with future vehicles, it won't always be that way. Just look at the excitement of the crew right through the microgravity portion of the flight. All very short-lived, which is the main criticism, of course, because they were in no time belted back in and heading home on a perfect glide slope. Celebrations once they landed, and that was VSS Unity's final ever mission. But fear not, because the next generation vehicle, currently known as the Delta class, is on the way. Although we don't know much about the vehicle, they have said that it will look almost exactly the same, with the main differences under the hood. The assembly of that should start late this year, and hopefully, flight tests will come about a year after that if all goes to plan. The next flight like this will be sometime in 2026. Now, I wasn't expecting to be covering news like this from Stoke Space this week, but the team here is absolutely not messing around. Just this week, they announced that they have successfully completed their first hot fire test of a Stage 1 engine of their Nova rocket. Okay, we have seen other hot fire tests recently with other engines, but this one is certainly not a normal engine. No, this is a full-flow staged combustion engine that uses methane and oxygen as the propellants. Does this combination sound familiar? Well, yes, of course, it does, because it is the same as SpaceX's mighty Raptor. As you might already know, Raptor is the only full-flow staged combustion rocket engine that has ever been proven in flight. Stoke Space has designed this engine in just 18 months, which is incredible. We've talked in depth about the benefits of a full-flow staged combustion engine a number of times before, but essentially these achieve higher efficiency by burning both fuel and oxidizer in separate preburners. They drive the turbo pumps that feed the gigantic volume of propellant into the engine, and the resulting fuel-rich and oxygen-rich gas meets together in the main combustion chamber, all resulting in the hellish fury that is blasting out the business end. Other less efficient engines, such as a gas generator, simply burn some of the propellants to power the turbopumps and then just dump a bunch of that rich exhaust overboard. As they say, full flow is the way to go. This first test by Stoke Space had an output of around 350,000 horsepower in less than a second. I'm not sure what sort of horsepower measurement that is because, for whatever reason, a boiler horse is a lot more powerful than a mechanical horse. I don't know who comes up with these units, but anyway, the engine is designed to produce over 100,000 pounds or 45.4 metric tons of thrust at full power. CEO of Stoke Space Andy Lapsa posted here saying that a full flow cycle is the best way to achieve the primary goal of complete reusability. That's because you have a lower turbine temperature for a given chamber pressure and, of course, high performance and a long life for the engine itself. Getting all this done so quickly is incredible work by Stoke Space. After all, it was only last year that they successfully tested their second stage, which is an incredible innovation by itself, not to mention the huge refurbishment efforts going on at Launch Complex 14 at Cape Canaveral. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit subscribe so we get to keep making them. If you want to continue with more space goodness, check out this video here next, or maybe these videos. Thanks for watching all this way through. That helps so much. I will see you in the next video.